What's up everyone? If you're new here, welcome to Rareliquid. My name is Ben and I used to work at JP Morgan as an investment banker. So I previously reacted to an M&A deal in the show Suits, and a lot of you guys have asked me to review the show Industry, which is actually about investment banking. I haven't actually read much about this show or watched it at all yet, and so you're gonna be getting my live reactions and comments to watching season 1, episode 1 of the show, and stick to the end of this video to get my grade on how realistic this episode is compared to real life investment banking. Now, if you clicked on this video because you're interested in the world of finance and investing, you may want to check out the Applied Value Investing Certificate program being offered by Wall Street Prep and Wharton, which is where I got my MBA. This program teaches you how to apply the principles of value investing with the sophistication of an institutional investor, and it's taught by Wharton professors and keynote speakers from real investors, including Oaktree's founder Howard Marks, who is one of the most famous investors in the world. Through this 8-week-long program, you'll learn about the core concepts behind value investing, such as market efficiency, intrinsic value, process-driven value investing, and a whole lot more. And you'll also gain access to an exclusive global network with access to special in-person networking events. And so whether you're an individual investor or a student trying to break into hedge funds, this program will give you the fundamental knowledge you need to invest like the father of value investing, Warren Buffett himself. And if any of this is of interest to you, be sure to use my code rareliquid to get up to $500 off. I'll leave information and everything I just discussed in this video's description. All right, with that said, let's get started with my reaction to the episode. I'll be watching it on my phone here.
Blah, 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 blah. I've never seen anyone put their IQ on a CV before.
All right, IQ on a resume is pretty wild. I don't think I've ever seen that in the hundreds of resumes I've looked at before. Okay, so it seems like it's more of a trading floor rather than an investment bank that does like M&A.
You don't look sure how to navigate that.
Okay, so you see a lot of monitors everywhere, and this is exactly what a trading floor would look like. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, I didn't really look into this show much. And so I thought this show might be a little bit more about investment banking where you work on M&A deals and IPOs, but instead it looks like this is going to be more focused on sales and trading. When people say they work at an investment bank, it can mean a lot of different things because an investment bank has so many different divisions. Sales and trading is focused on the facilitation of the buying and selling of financial instruments like stocks, bonds, commodities, and etc. Now on the sales side, you have a bunch of clients that you're constantly giving them information about all these different financial instruments so that you're trying to build your book and sell more and more. And then on the trading side, you're helping on executing on those sales and transactions. And the more you sell and trade basically as a bank, the more you earn via commission. And so that also helps with your performance and probably also your compensation because your performance is tied directly to how much you're able to sell.
Sure, I can't get you anything. Yeah, Robert, I've been meaning to ask.
Ouch. So you can see here that the new guy is asking his boss or just some senior guy if he can get him anything like coffee, and he's just getting completely ignored. And while I do think that nowadays probably it's not as much like this, I will say that the old gen kind of investment bankers, sales and trade, and especially if they're on the sales and trading floor, they're a lot more like fratty. They just don't really give a shit except about like their job and who else is in their kind of fraternity in a sense. And so I don't know, I just think this is kind of like a small scene that talks about the larger culture of what it's like at a trading floor.
Did someone very close to you die?
It's a very dark suit.
I'm sorry for your loss, but
Have you left the label on your sleeve there as well? Wow.
that is new.
All right, so these guys are poking fun at the new guy because he's wearing a black suit. And this is actually something I learned back when I was in college from people who had interned in banking. Never ever wear a black suit. You actually want to be always wearing something like blue and gray. Black, I think, is just a little bit too formal looking, and blue and gray are just what are more in style now.
Young people are our capital. Graduates are our capital. And while it's my pleasure to congratulate you on this placement, the work to stay here starts now.
I think they did a really good job of recreating what it's like being part of a new class. And yeah, there are always these new speakers that come in who are just talking about how you are really the lifeblood of the company and they're trying to pump you up. So I think this is a good recreation of what it's actually like to start at an investment bank.
Hey, ask Rishi for the level of 1 year Euro swap and 500k DBO1.
All right, so we're gonna get a bit technical here, but breaking this down, what he just referred to here was an interest rate swap that begins in 1 year and lasts for 1 year, hence the 1 year, 1 year. This swap is based on Euro interest rates, and the 500k DBO1 means that for every 1 basis point or 0.01% move in interest rates, the trade's value changes by 500,000 euros. And a trade like this would be used to hedge risk or speculate on future rate movements in the European interest rate markets.
Can you send...
Relax. It's not an auction house. I've just sent out my runs. They're on your Bloomie. You can sit down now.
All right, so one thing I wanted to explain, besides the guy just being completely rude, again, that's just sometimes I think part of the culture. He says, I sent it on your Bloomie, and that's just slang for and a shortened way of saying Bloomberg. So on Bloomberg, anyone who has a Bloomberg terminal, so these things are the big monitors that you see that traders usually have. They cost upwards of $20,000 per person. And these are used where you can look up any kind of financial information across different industries and companies. And you can also send messages to each other on there, like Slack, basically. And so that's what he's referring to by saying Bloomie.
I was talking to Phelim at Fenmarsh. He's impressed with that U.S. tail risk work we did for him.
Sent me an email to say thanks. Sorry, I didn't want to clog your inbox.
Don't apologize. Just remember to tuck your book here. People will miss it. We want to get you printing business as soon as possible.
First of all, I gotta say that this boss seems super nice, but at the same time seems like he can have a firm hand, which in the world of finance is probably what you want because it probably means you're working for a boss that garners a lot of respect. Second, to explain the US tail risk work, this is probably in reference to some work she did on a strategy to protect against extreme market events in the US, such as stock crashes or interest rate spikes. It's called tail risk because it refers to a rare and extreme market event that occurs in the tails of a probability distribution.
Yes, I still don't have your university transcript.
I'm really sorry. I will get on it.
You said that last week. Well, Harper Stern, you're an international candidate, right? I'm still missing your transcript.
I'm still waiting on my college to send a copy. They are notoriously slow.
Okay, I will say my memory is a bit fuzzy on this, but I do think that for the most part, most banks don't ask for transcripts, but if they do, you do typically have to send it before you actually start the job, but maybe it's different in London. I also do think that it's a bit weird that she is having some issues sending her transcript. Usually that should be like a really quick thing. Don't make it weird, I need a favor. Okay, so it seems like the character might be doing something shady, like maybe she lied about her grades or something like that. Or I could be completely off. And now that I do think about it, I think back when I was at JP Morgan, I was the UC Berkeley JP Morgan recruiting captain for 2 years. And whenever we got a resume and looked at the grades, we just took whatever was on the resume and took that candidate's word for it. And I do think that's common practice at most banks, which is to take that candidate's word for it. And I don't think that really a transcript is really needed a lot of the time, because if you can't pass the technical interviews anyway, then it doesn't really matter what your grades are. And if you can and you're really good, then we just automatically kind of assume that you're good and okay to be hired.
Hey, have you been home? You're just like never in your room and you're wearing an identical outfit to yesterday?
Well, I'm logging those nocturnal hours, trying to make a good impression, you know.
Don't try to figure out how much you get paid by the hour in IBD, because I will guarantee you it is less than minimum wage.
Okay, so initially I was a bit confused because I didn't understand why this guy would work nocturnal hours at a trading floor, but this guy works at a separate part of the investment bank, which I'll just call like corporate advisory, where you're working on M&A deals, IPOs, debt financings. And when you're in the corporate advisory side, that's where you're working those 80 to 100 plus hour weeks, versus on the trading floor, you're usually going home maybe a few hours after the markets close.
Don't try to figure out how much you get paid by the hour in IBD because I will guarantee you it is less than minimum wage.
Well, the way I see it, I'm in the ivory tower upstairs. You're down here on the floor with the peasants.
Okay, so that was a bit of a burn, and I think this conversation is something that would actually happen in the real world if you have two roommates who are both working at an investment bank in different divisions. So the sales and trading side is definitely less sexier. It's also kind of a dying industry because a lot of trading is being automated, versus the investment banking corporate advisory side. That's where most college grads do want to go to. It's where you're working on quote unquote sexier deals that are headlined in the New York Times. You're also working 80 to 100 plus hours a week, and that's why on a per hour basis, you're not making that much, but you can easily make upwards of 150 to 200K in your first year, depending on the bank you're in. And so definitely this is like kind of like a realistic conversation I could see happening.
Are you that thirsty?
Oh, you know, you got a 30 quid meal allowance. Like, why would you not use all of it?
That's fair enough.
How's your model?
Okay, so when you work more than, I think, past 7 p.m. or something like that at most investment banks, then you're allowed to have per diem, aka something, at least for me back then, it was $25 for your dinner. And you can spend up to $25. Anything after that you have to pay, and then anything below that is just gone. And so what this guy is doing is he just kind of is maximizing that per diem. And I think it's just really funny because I remember back then, you know, I was working at an investment bank 1 year right out of college, making 6 figures, and it sounds like a lot of money, but in actuality, you're still not making that much after rent and paying for food and all of that. So you still want to maximize all these little things if you can, and that's exactly what this guy is doing.
How's your model?
We'll finish it in the morning.
Send it over my way. I've got capacity.
How do you have capacity?
Okay, so this scene to me is highly unrealistic because now we're in the investment banking corporate advisory side, and this analyst who is new is asking this other analyst who is also new from the previous scenes we've seen, hey, like, let me take your model and I'll start working on it, which would pretty much never happen. At an investment bank, there's usually one analyst on each deal. And if there's a new analyst, they're paired with a more senior one because that senior analyst can kind of help that junior one. And because deals teams are structured in that way, an analyst will never tell another fellow analyst, hey, let me like look over this or work on this model that you've been working on. It's not like you can just like pass it back and forth because you're always working on separate deals.
You're bouncing. Hey man, hey, it's only 10:15. No one here is actually going to tell you this, but you need to put in FaceTime.
Actually, I don't. Staying up on that doesn't enhance my work.
Okay, so this analyst is just leaving at around 10:15 p.m. and that's actually really early at an investment bank, especially if you're working on a live deal. There have been times when I left, on average, I probably left around 11 p.m. to midnight, but there have been times when I left around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And I would say, especially if you're newer to the firm, then you probably want to stay a bit longer just to show your face more, that, you know, they mentioned FaceTime. But, you know, at certain firms, if the culture is really, really good, then when you don't have really pressing work and you're done with whatever's on your plate, then you can go home earlier at around, like, you know, 8 to 10 p.m. Okay, so there is a lot of discussion about how investment bankers take Adderall at work and stuff like that. And so I personally never took it, and I do know some friends who do take it. So I think that maybe this show probably is reinforcing a stereotype that may or may not be true. All right, so I think this is a bit of an exaggeration that they're doing here because you don't actually have to sleep on the floor of the bathroom. But I will say that I have slept below my cubicle to take a nap. But a lot of the times, if you're staying really, really late, then it's okay to like put your head down on your desk for a little bit. Or you can also go to like a nearby conference room and just rest or something like that. Lying down on the bathroom floor, I think, is just for TV.
Easy is it to get them Ivy League niggas to come home with you?
I'm just here to work. It's only with you that everything becomes sexual.
So the only reason you're calling me is that you want a fake transcript. You must need.
Okay, so this protagonist is shady.
Why have you changed the WACC?
The DCF was coming out too low.
Well, how does it compare to the transaction comps?
These be-profit unicorns trade on crazy multiples, 8 times, 9 times. This liquidity discount would be just over the DCF.
Fantastic. What's that?
All right, so there were two terms mentioned here, WACC, which is your weighted average cost of capital, and then transaction comps, which is a valuation methodology. I won't go too much into what they are, but their definitions will be below here. But I will say that, these are very, very commonly used terms in investment banking. And so realistic that they would be discussed in the bullpen, which is what you call the area where all the cubicles are.
What's that?
That's my model.
Why are you doing the model? Gus is doing the model.
I had capacity. I just wanted to get ahead.
Sorry, I told you to do the pitch book. So do the pitch book, okay? Hungerfix want to optimize delivery speeds. They're looking at mid-caps with best-in-class GPS tech. Clear comps, Deliveroo, Uber Eats.
I found something with good sat-nav IP. They're quite small.
Don't fucking fish. Stick to the formatting. And for fuck's sake, make sure the font's Helvetica 12 or the MD will freak.
Okay, so it does seem like there are two analysts working on this same deal. Again, I think this is kind of unrealistic, assuming that they are similar level, unless one is maybe more senior than the other, but they seem pretty similar. And then I do think that when you have an associate telling you, hey, you run the model, then it should not be going back and forth. So I think it's realistic that this associate, aka the person that analysts report to, would kind of freak out and yell at you. Or yelling is not as common really, but they would get frustrated if you're not really doing exactly what you're told you should be doing.
You need to get out of here.
Why?
You've only left the building once in the last 48 hours. It's automatically red flagged by your ID card. I don't want to know where you've been sleeping, but optically, I need you to walk out of the office, tap your card out, do whatever, then come back.
So when I was working in banking, we didn't have ID cards where we would swipe in and out, but I can imagine maybe that's something that some banks have implemented, and it's not uncommon for analysts especially to be working crazy hours, probably more than they should be doing. And so this somewhat is probably a realistic scene. Like I remember one time I actually worked 28-ish straight hours from 9 a.m. to the following day, 1 p.m. And I was told, you need to go home. But it was after I finished the model that I was working on. So I would say that something like this has definitely happened at each investment bank where someone more senior is telling the analyst, hey, you need to go out and then come back later.
I was looking into the business you did with...
Right, priorities. Shall we get some wine that doesn't taste like paint dinner?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a funny scene because that lady is definitely the client, and she, when at an investment bank, I guess regardless of what division you're at, the clients are really the ones giving you money in the end. And so as an investment banker, you are always kind of sucking up to them. I remember my managing directors, who are, in their 40s, 50s, they're in the office, they like run the show, they have all this power, they're like the alphas. In front of a client, they're just constantly just brown nosing and just being nice to them, or to the point where I'm like, dang, you're like a totally different person in the office versus with the client.
Wipe your fucking nose. It only takes 2 pints, doesn't it?
All right, so maybe obvious to some of you, probably not to others, but when he's saying wipe your nose, he's talking about Coke. And basically, since you snorted up your nose, there's some left and you're like sniffling or something like that. Now for the record, I'm not just saying this because, I'm making a public video and make YouTube videos, but I've never done Coke. But I will say that it is common for a lot of bankers to do it when they're going on a night out. Just, I guess, like gives you energy and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a stereotype that they've included in this show, which I think is fair to include.
You rested? Hungerfix have changed the time. They're in at 9 tomorrow, and their COO is autistic. No, I'm not being snide. She has autism. And leveling with you, she's also a bit of a cunt. Those things are unrelated. Speed and clarity. Gus, how's the model?
I'll be done turning comments by tonight.
We need to get the book to the printers by 6 a.m. Don't stay up all night, but tell me that's doable.
Okay, I think this scene is pretty funny. A lot of little details here that they are including that I really like. One is the associate, it seems, or maybe she's a VP who's really tightly wound, and it seems like she's very, very stressed. She's probably the one really running the deal and maybe a little bit new. But anyway, I don't think actually they're always like this, but it can be, especially when you have like a fire drill going on and a live deal, which is what it seems like right now since they have something due soon. And then one of the analysts mentions that, oh, I'm going to be turning comments. That's literally the phrases that I would use. Turn comments means makes the changes that whatever your director or VP, your associate gives you. And then the very last scene where she's saying something like, I need it done like ASAP. It's going to take a long time. Don't stay up all night, but it can, you can get it done by tomorrow morning, right? It's just like a very funny scene where that's loaded with like, I need you to do this ASAP. You probably will stay up all night doing it, but don't tell anyone else about it, essentially. All right, another detail I think they kind of get mostly correct. I've definitely been working so late into the night that the cleaning people come in. But I will say that it's not as common to just be sleeping at your desk like this guy is so much and in the office. I think for the vast majority of time, once you finish your work, you're out of the office as soon as you possibly can. All right, so what they're doing right now here is a very good detail they've added, which is flipping books, which basically after you've printed out, after you're done with the pitch book and you printed it out, then you want to check every single page to see if there are any issues. And based on this guy's facial expression, it seems like there is maybe one mistake that he's found, which is actually it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but it can feel like a really big deal for a new analyst.
You're in the meeting with me. Well done. Gus, I hope you don't mind.
Well deserved. 1-0 to you.
But you're not listening to me. It's just one page. I fucked up the font on that one page. Can you just reprint it? The meeting's at 9 a.m. You don't want to call company coffee.
Yeah, so right now he is calling the printer, and most large investment banks will have like a printing station. Like whenever I was done with the presentation, I was sent it to the printing room via like this portal we had, and it was like a PowerPoint file or a PDF file. And then they would give us an estimate of when they could print by. But at JP Morgan, this printing station has probably tons and tons of orders all the time. And so you can't just send it to print and it's done right away. And also after printing, you need to bound the books with these like bindings. So if you're in this kind of scenario, you've found a mistake and you need to reprint like even just one page, you have to unbound everything. And then basically it's not as simple as it sounds. And so I will say that just having some font issue is not really that big of a deal if it's just on one page, versus if there are like a bunch of numbers that are actually wrong and that affects the analysis. But we'll see how this all plays out. Holy shit.
Hari's death is an unexpected tragedy. The next 24 hours and the way we respond to this are defining. Do not speak to the press. I'd rather you didn't speak to anyone outside of the office. For now. This is about respect. There will be an inquiry into the circumstances.
Okay, I gotta say I didn't see this coming. This obviously this is something that has happened before. I don't know anyone personally who has passed away from working crazy hours in investment banking, but it's been all over the news. And so internally, I never know what it's like inside. It seems like this lady is saying like, oh, we want to do something out of respect, but actually they're really probably trying to just cover their own ass as a bank. But yeah, it's definitely something that can happen if you're not careful with getting enough sleep, like over stressing about things. And I think a lot of times investment bankers can succumb to the pressures of wanting to impress their seniors, or if there's like a client that's really demanding, working really crazy hours. I've definitely been there. This person in this show so far, where they haven't stepped out of the office in 48 hours and constantly is like taking some kind of pills and stuff like that, I think definitely shows a more drastic version of what banking can be like. But with that said, there should be a lot more reform, I think, in the industry to hopefully make the culture of investment banking a lot better than it is right now.
A Hunger Fix's flight got cancelled. They're in on Monday.
All right, so what happened here is that the client is not able to make their original meeting time, and so now the meeting is pushed to a few days, which basically means that this character passed away for no reason or was stressing out for no reason, worked all those crazy hours for this pitch that was eventually moved. So, I will say that it doesn't really happen that often in banking where meetings are postponed. Usually all the meetings are well kept, but it definitely can happen. I think what's more important, and the kind of important message here, is that no matter how important you think your work is, it's really not that important in the grand scheme of things. Never worth your life or your mental health at the very least at all either. And so yeah, I will say that's pretty much the episode, and it was a lot bleaker towards the end than I expected. Didn't really know what to expect going into it. I thought at first that it might be a show about sales and trading. Towards the latter half, it was a lot more about investment banking, like the corporate advisory side. I'd say in terms of realisticness though, it's definitely like an A-. I do think that there are a lot of really good details they included in there that were really small ones that really spoke to how much attention to detail they actually put into really understanding finance/banking, sales and trading life. So yeah, that was my kind of reaction to episode 1. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to watch some more of the episodes, if you have any episodes in particular you think I really should take a look at. That's it. Thank you guys all so much as always for watching. Hope to catch you all in the next one.